Hello, everybody, and welcome. Before we start out the initial kind of storyline of the Ravean campaign, I wanted to help set the stage a little bit better to get people up to speed on what it is that we are really working with in our storyline. The World of Ravean is a completely homebrew world. It is designed with the means of being accessible for any and all D&D content to be applied to it. I wanted to make a world within which, if you have a Kalashtar, there is a place for a Kalashtar. If you have a Warforged, or a Tabaxi, or a Triton, or a Vidalkin, or anything for a race, or a class, or a storyline, it can fit in this world. That way, as we develop stories, it is a living, breathing world that can be a fairly developed stage for new players and new dungeon masters in general. Seeing as I am a relatively new dungeon master, makes it a little bit easier. This homebrew world will have a number of different homebrew systems for homebrew subclasses and races that tie into our story. So if you see something that you don't recognize, don't worry. We probably are just made it up, and hopefully we can explain it and support the enjoyment of it either way. As we continue, there are two major forces that are more heavily applied, that are heavily applicable to the World of Ravean. The World of Ravean is a fairly peaceful world with little war and 5 major nations that live within the material plane. These 5 nations, though peaceful, are fairly tense. There are a powder keg that can go off at any moment should one wrong another, and battle lines can be drawn and alliances can be made at the drop of a hat should things go sideways. Knowing this, the two major influencers of this main world are the gods and the Plane of Dreams. We'll start with the Plane of Dreams. The Plane of Dreams, at least in the World of Ravean, is a relatively untapped source of energy. This source of energy that can be tapped by wizards and gods and pretty much any creature that normally taps into it through dreaming. This means that there's a number of new homebrew spells, and dreams within the actual World of Ravean can be one of 3 things. They can be a normal dream, they can be a vision where another planar being is trying to contact you, or they can be something more, which ties you a little bit closer into the world. Personally, in our campaign, we use this Plane of Dream conduit as a means of tying our individual player backstories into the rest of the world, with the DM, me, writing different information into stories that I play out as dreams for each player. Having a player group as large as we do, with 6 players, makes it a little bit interesting for keeping these many dreams going on a regular basis. So I hope that you find them interesting, and as we weave our story, hopefully you find the ones that we finally end up with a brilliant puzzle. This would be the best way to describe it. With each piece coming slowly over time, it can be a little bit of a challenge and a game in and of itself to discover the different secrets of the world. The second most powerful influence to the World of Ravean are the gods. There are some familiar faces, namely people like the Raven Queen or Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon. These gods exist in other content within Dungeons & Dragons, especially at 5th edition, but they are not exclusive to the World of Ravean or the other editions of Dungeons & Dragons and other content, so they make their appearance here within our campaign, alongside a wide array of new gods that have developed. This is a massive pantheon that is designed to reflect different archetypes so much more than different individual domains. Each god as opposed to being the god of war, is a god of a certain archetype. This means that they're a little bit more accessible across race lines, as opposed to having, a god specifically to goblins. There is a god that a goblin race can worship, that a halfling race also worships, that anybody else can worship, making them much more powerful and more prominent than some of the other familiar gods. Seeing as the Ravean campaign and the Ravean world setting is not exclusive, there are a number of gods that do play in, even still, as individual racial gods. Different gods of the orcs or different other races within the world do exist. They just are a little bit quieter in the background. So if you don't see a god that you recognize, there is maybe two reasons for that. There may be a specific reason they aren't present, or they may just exist with a lower following of worshippers, a little bit less prominent than other worship. Otherwise, the gods of this very large pantheon interact with their followers in a number of ways, but typically indirectly. They are locked to the outer planes. In the history of the world, there was a person that locked the gods to the outer planes to protect the rest of the mortal world, for the material plane and the inner planes, from their incessant bickering and conflict. Given that this is a large pantheon, there is plenty of room for conflict. This person saved and liberated the mortal plane from these gods, making it so that they are stuck and have to utilize their followers on the material plane to enact their will. This means as well that people on the material plane are a little bit more laissez-faire about how they worship the gods, preferring to, in some cases, worship them in passing, and in some cases, worship them with a near violent fervor. There is a wide spectrum of worship across the group of mortals that do. However, there is one way that the gods can more directly affect the material and inner planes in minor ways. They are able to reach out to their followers more directly through the plane of dreams. This conduit being a high, powerful energy source, the gods are able to finally touch base with their worshippers, a select few that they choose, giving them missions, speaking to them, wishing them well, giving them little boons, things that they can do in minor ways. They can punish individuals that stray too far from their declared path. They can reward others that prove themselves a worthy champion. However, they cannot do anything extremely drastic and world-ending through the plane of dreams. They are limited to reaching out to their followers. These are the two major factors within the world of Ravean. So as we continue our story, now you have a basic set stage for the world. Listen close. We'll see how many puzzle pieces come out and how quickly they get solved. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the story we weave.